Well, thank you for staying this evening to hear what I have to say. This won't be a very technical talk, but it does contain some of the insights I've had since forming DevSecOps, and I hope that these thoughts may be of use to you in your daily work. So I was asked by I Am the Calvary to come and talk. As a result, how many people know I Am the Calvary? No show of hands at all? Okay. Well, a little bit about me you heard of already. The Calvary started in 2013. In 2013, I was taking a break from it all. I was in Portugal doing archaeology. These are some of my selected career highlights, including co-founding OWASP, which is where I met Jeff Williams, who invented the OWASP app sensor. Show of hands for app sensor. Right on. And when I went to Nationwide Building Society, we implemented app sensor at a bank. And so we instrumented security throughout the application, the network, and pretty much all of the, I guess, hosts as well. And as a result, what we found was a significant drop in financial crime, at least at Nationwide. And what happened was the attackers would just move on to somewhere else. And in my next job we took the lessons learned from that, and I worked with a woman, Shannon Leitz, and we created the DevSecOps Manifesto. And so these were still early days, I think, for DevOps as well. And what I came to learn is that security is kind of the art of protecting my future self from my current self. And I hope that I'll demonstrate a bit about why that's true in the rest of this talk. So I don't know how I Am the Calvary got started, but this film was popular in 2013. I was out of the country, I didn't see it. And there was this line in it, and I think it may be related, I don't know. It was started by Bo Woods and Josh Corman. And what they noticed is we were starting to get all these Internet of Things going on when we really didn't have a handle on the security of applications, of networks, of hosts. And as a result, they sort of realized the Calvary won't be coming to save the day because things are being produced faster than they can possibly be fixed by experts. They decided that as subject matter experts, we all have to, take the lead wherever we're at. And in the Ada software manual, it says that safety and security are intertwined. Safety is about protecting software from the world, and security is about protecting the world from the harm of software. And we focus a lot on security and patching and all the variety of things, the OWASP top 10. And because these things are interrelated, this is where really DevOps and DevSecOps come in. I feel like they're two sides of the same coin, that if you really improve the quality of something, you gain safety, and that, as a side effect, almost improves the security. And I think if you read, I don't know, has anybody read The Phoenix Project? Excellent. I love that book. I like Eli Goldratt's The Goal as well, which was what inspired us at the time that we were doing DevSecOps. But you'll notice, even though Gene Spafford, who's a very famous security guy, was an author on the book doesn't speak to security as such. It speaks really to a lot of the quality and improving the processes. And I found that to be true too. What separates I Am the Calvary is that they really focus on that safety part. They look at where people can be harmed as a result of software that are being introduced into devices that are used to treat us in medicine and in automotive, in our home IoTs, public infrastructure and security research. Some of that is done out of the Atlantic Council in DC. And some of it you would have heard in the news. They recently got a bill written through Congress, and that's where the photo came from actually, so some pretty cool stuff. So to learn more about them, they're at that URL, and I really think this is a great group, and please visit them and learn more. There's another Calvary though, CAVALRY, and interesting to the namesake, they do ISR for the US government basically, or for the military, and this is interesting because the goal of the ISR, of the Calvary, is to do intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So in your theater of war, you try and control it. If you're in the Air Force, it would be AWACS. And in the ground troops, it's the cavalry. And it is from this that command and control gets their intelligence to conduct war and to run war operations. There is a special group, 19 Delta, and they are what are known as the scouts. And when you're doing war, you have to get things to the front line in order to conduct war. And in order to get to the front line, you need to do that safely. And the scouts are out ahead of everyone else, often alone, doing that recon to detect and protect the rest of the army as it moves forward. Now, this is very interesting because this defense in depth is built on this detection in depth. So that's their primary duty, is this route reconnaissance. So when thinking about something that we hear all the time in like security is defense in depth, but what we very often don't see is detection in depth. And that's a problem because you can't really do defense in depth without good detection in depth. So some of this is based on time-based security. Have you read the book? Have you heard of the book? Excellent book. It lays out the premise that your protection time has to be greater than or equal to the detection time and reaction time. So this gives us a metric by which to think about security. In one of my clients, they're a very, very large bureaucracy, and this is something that maybe some of you have dealt with. In order to get a known patch into deployment, it takes them 180 days because of their processes. And we know from, recent breaches in the news, right, that is just far too slow. Again, this comes back to the idea of DevOps, and we've really got to speed these cycles up. And that means changing our processes, because current processes are significantly inadequate, right? They have to call up the guy in IT, they got to set up a test environment, they got to test the patch, all these things before the patch goes live so it doesn't bring out production. And these kind of cycle times, tax time, if you've read the Phoenix Project, it just doesn't work. Win is doing an updated book, Analog Network Security. This is really a mic drop, I'm telling you. It'll be published in the next quarter. Look for it and read it. There'll be some new and interesting stuff to follow time-based security that's relevant. So Gemba, it's actually Genba in Japanese. And basically one of the things that's talked about in these continuous improvement quality type things that came out of Toyota was the idea of go and see, get to the root cause, how to look. And the GENCHI GENBUTSU means go and see literally. And there are different types of these gen words, and gen is really the idea of getting to the source and looking at it. These words tell us where to look, really. They form a checklist, but even with a checklist and doing root cause analysis, it's often very difficult to see. So I don't know if you've played this game before, if you've seen this before, but there's a sniper in that picture. So even when we know what to look for and we have our checklist, it's not always obvious to see. So do you guys think you know where this guy is at? There he is standing up. So looking is not easy, but detection is necessary. So I hope I gave you some thoughts, because really I just told you how to write secure software in a very pensive way. Do you have any ideas? Anybody? Well, I like that. Anybody else? So Dennis Ritchie said if we were as clever as we can be when we're writing the code, right, it's twice as hard to debug as to write software. It'll be very, very difficult to debug. So definitely make it easier to detect and trace your errors, identify what the problems are. Often we're coming back to it, or somebody else is coming back to it well after us. I think it's a time machine. You go to the future, see what the hell goes wrong, and then come back and fix it. But since we can't know the future, right, we have to do something else. And what we do know is that we're really bad at predicting it. And so if we take it to heart that our future self is going to be harmed by our current self as we're going about doing things, build detection into what we're doing. How does something fail? Very often when we're writing code, we're throwing away all kinds of useful information. What was passed to us? What was the message? Who did it come from? Very often there's a trust factor involved. We just accept all messages from whoever they came from. And so understanding failure is difficult when we do not build this kind of intelligence into our applications, into our software, into our containers. So the idea is really detection in depth and instrumenting that. Where do we look? I mean, it's unique depending on what we're trying to build, what we're doing, where we're at in the architectures, it's different for networks than it is for applications. I assume most of you are working in application security. So rugged software was started by Josh Corman. That was one way of building detection in depth into applications. OWASP App Sensor is another, and that's where my personal experience comes from. It also is incidental that Jeff Williams, the inventor of the App Sensor App Sensor project, formed the company Contrast, and they are offering products that instrument applications with detection in depth. So there is something you can purchase now in certain environments. And that's my talk. Thank you.